The tenoning fixture is a versatile piece of work holding equipment that you'd use during the prototyping phase. As its name implies, it's used to make mortise, or a tenon rather, and this would be the mortise. This is more of like a furniture joint, like a load-bearing joint. Typically what we're using it for in most cases is just to make an enlarged rabbet joint. So our rabbet bits only go up to 1/2 of an inch. If you needed something like a 1-inch rabbet for whatever purpose, you can do that on the tenoning fixture. You can also make something like a half lap joint or a lap joint. So I can cut these large laps or half laps, and you can lap those over, make a joint like this. Or you could do something like a stile and rail. So I can cut this feature here, and I would just cut it once, flip it around, cut it again, and then you can slot it in and make a decent joint that way. In most applications, you're going to be using this with a dado blade. I just have a standard blade shown right now. It could work with a normal blade, but typically you use a dado blade. The tenoning fixture itself has varying degrees of adjustability. The first would be that you can unlock this large bolt on this side, and you can dial in and move the entire carriage left and right, and it is based off of a miter gauge. This is a special miter gauge with a bolt, kind of a washer in the back so it won't pick up. But I can adjust this to the left and to the right. If you're going to be cutting like a rabbet on here, you're going to be cutting on the outside of the fixture. You're not going to be cutting towards the face. So I'm not going to run it and try to cut a rabbet in between the metal face and the wood here. So you can adjust this left and right to control the depth of your cut and then lock it back down. You can, if you want, make compound cuts as well. So you can loosen this little wing nut on the front, and you can tilt this over and back. The reason you might do something like this is, yes, I could tilt the table saw blade, but then A, you have to set the table saw blade back up accurately, or the next person won't be able to make a good cut. And B, if you need to make an accurate cut, and then you come back a few days later and you want to repeat that cut, in most cases you could probably leave the tenoning fixture angled and no one's going to mess with it, whereas most people are going to be readjusting the table saw blade. You can also nod the material forwards and backwards. Again, there's a wing nut on the back, and I can tilt this whole plate down, and then I can cut, again, another compound angle. Sticking with this piece right here, kind of open this up a little bit. When you're cutting your stock, if you're cutting through here, there's a fair bit of cutting force. It'll cause your material to kind of lean forward like this, causing your cut not to be very accurate. What a lot of students end up doing is taking a block and making like a sacrificial backer board, and they'll screw this onto this metal plate, and then when you put your stock in here, if this is screwed in place, it'll kind of help prevent that from rocking. So now, if this one is fixed rigidly, and I'm making a cut, it prevents this from being able to rock over. It's still, your stock could lift up while you're cutting, so you still need to make sure you clamp it properly, but having a backer board can help. Most of the time, the reason the stock either raises vertically during the cut or is pushed back and kind of nods forward during the cut is because you're trying to take too much material too quickly, or more than likely you just didn't secure it properly. A lot of students, for some reason, don't like to move this arm. It moves very easy. If you have a smaller piece of stock, you should move it all the way to the back, tighten this nut down, and then you can bring it in and clamp with a lot of clamping force right on the part. And then if you're switching stock sizes, I should then move this to the center of the larger piece of stock and clamp that down properly. So it's very easy to adjust. You loosen the bolt, it'll swing 3 or 4 inches. You can tighten it down, and then you can bring it over and clamp it on the part. So in this case, it'd be too far forward, but I often see this not being adjusted properly.